it's an interesting exercise to compare what we can reconstruct of the landscape and the geography of Iceland in Landnámabók, and to compare that with what we find in the sagas, because as you say, there's a great overlap in terms of geography and characters who we find in Landnámabók and in the sagas. And of course the relationship, the textual relationship between Landnámabók and the sagas is very complex. Some sagas borrow or take material from Landnámabók, different versions of Landnámabók, and similarly Landnámabók makes reference to sagas in a few places. Both Landnámabók and the sagas preserve different, well, what you could call snippets or fragments of environmental memory. So they give us an idea of what people in the 12th or 13th centuries in Iceland, how they believed Iceland of the 9th and 10th centuries was. And so we can try to sort of reconstruct a sense of what Iceland might have looked like in terms of woodland or other natural features and resources from both texts. Comparing Landnámabók and the sagas and the geography or the portrayal of the landscape, topography of Iceland in Landnámabók and the sagas is also interesting to see the extent to which they match or don't. So how far these texts kind of correlate, or the details within with regard to the extent of land claims in specific places. And we have several examples where, for example, with Egil's saga, the description of the initial land claim in Egil's saga by Skallagrímur is much larger than the account of the same land claim in Landnámabók. So this leads us then to think about what dynamics are at play, what the different authors of these texts may have been trying to do or achieve by giving specific details of land claims.
You have described Landnámabók as a narrative map, suggesting that even if it's a prose work, it is to some extent comparable to a map of Iceland. Can you explain to us how you understand this similarity?
We don't know why Landnámabók was written in the first place. Is still a question that is debated by scholars. There's no single reason, perhaps, why Landnámabók was written in the first instance. It may have just been an antiquarian exercise. It may have had to do with administrative changes around the country that came into being after the introduction of the tithe law in 1097. It may have been some kind of an attempt to sort of catalogue and evaluate the worth of different landholdings around the country. But I think it may also have been an attempt to map the country, to sort of produce a description of the country as a whole, and with a practical function, to essentially to aid people's geographical knowledge of Iceland and even to help with navigation. And the sagas and Landnámabók work in a sense together in this, particularly where journeys are described in the sagas, and the structure of Landnámabók, which is very carefully organised on principles of geography. So sort of enumerating in a very carefully worked out order specific land claims, boundaries and natural features in Landnámabók may have been a way for people to fix the geography of parts of Iceland or the country as a whole in their minds. It's much easier to navigate around any local area if you can attach stories or anecdotes to specific places or landmarks, which then make them more memorable. Mm.